You are listening to episode 5 of the Romance Class podcast. This is a reading from romance novel Cover Story Girl by Filipino author Chris Mariano. It's available as an ebook on Amazon and other retailers and in print in bookstores in the Philippines. Links to purchase the book will be included in the show notes. In this excerpt, Gio Gahol will be reading as main character Gio and Rachel Coates will be reading the role of Min Hee. This was recorded at the Study by Enderan in Podium Mall, Ortigas Center, Metro Manila.
Cover Story Girl
by Chris Mariano.
Gio decided to walk all the way to D-Mall. After all, he was feeling pretty lucky today. Pasalubong? Check. Work progress? Check. Going home early? Check. The sun was now closer to the horizon than when Gio started out, and a few blue-sailed parao sailed across, as if someone was orchestrating a postcard-perfect moment. On days like this, a walk could only do him good. The narrow, sandy path took him close to resorts, restaurants, and cafes on one side, the inviting sea on the other. Most of the buildings didn't have doors or walls facing the beach, so patrons got an unobstructed view. At night, the place would be lined with seaside buffets and acoustic guitar singers. But on this afternoon, it was peopled by tourists trying to catch the last rays of sun or enjoying the sunset over some early drinks. Gio had no problem slowing down to a more leisurely pace. He didn't know why the Koreans didn't tell Frank of the slight disagreement he had had with one of them. He had tried to help them as much as he could have, but Min Hee didn't particularly strike him as someone who was going to leave well enough alone. Still, he was grateful that she hadn't complained to his boss about him. In fact, he was still thinking about Frank's phone call and trying not to feel so guilty when he saw a pair of creamy shoulders hunched over at a crepes place. Gio recognized Min Hee's profile. She was seated at the open bar and looked to be doodling on something. As a server approached to bring her order, she looked up. He didn't know why he stopped by the road. He was just a few feet away from her, and he could hear every bit of their conversation. "So, ma'am, how long will you be in Boracay?" the young server asked, obviously looking to impress. Gio couldn't blame him.
A few weeks more, maybe a month.
He heard Min Hee reply. She had a big smile on her face, open and animated. Maybe she wasn't as bad as he had imagined her to be. The server was impressed. "Ma'am, you must be rich to have a very long vacation." Min Hee laughed and leaned forward.
Don't tell anyone, but I have a sister who took over the family business, a huge chain of hotels. I'm here in the Philippines to plot my next move.
The server looked even more surprised and even a little nervous at this admission. "Maybe you'll put up a hotel in Boracay someday." Min Hee gave him a conspiratorial grin.
I'll have to get the company from her first, one step at a time.
Gio could almost imagine it. Min Hee being driven up in a golf cart, then walking through the polished lobby of a fancy hotel overlooking a golf course and a faraway beach. He could see her smiling confidently at some business associates, just as her prim and proper older sister stepped out of an elevator in surprise. It played out just like some TV drama. He shook his head in amusement, but was unable to contain his curiosity any longer. "And the photo shoot from yesterday?" he asked. Both Min Hee and the server turned to him. The younger guy gave a nod and backed away into the kitchen, while Min Hee kept the smile frozen on her face.
Ah, Mr. Museum, sneaking up on me?
She asked, a tiny bit of annoyance in her voice. Gio flushed. He hadn't meant to get on her wrong side again. He started over. "I'm sorry, I just saw you and thought that I should come over to say hello and to thank you for saying nice things to my boss and to make sure you're enjoying the place. And apologize for yesterday was the more appropriate thing to say, but Gio just couldn't bring himself to admit it. He wasn't convinced he was entirely wrong. She raised an eyebrow.
And eavesdropping on my conversations was the way to do it?
"I'm sorry about that," he said. You were close to the road. I couldn't help but overhear. Min Hee held out her hand.
Apology gift.
What? Gio responded, surprised.
Apology gift.
She repeated patiently.
It's customary. Anything will do. I can take that in your hand.
She pointed to the red box of muffins. Gio was beginning to regret taking that walk down the beach. He should have grabbed a tricycle back at the muffin place. I can buy you, he began to say, then changed his mind. This was not going as he had hoped. He really had meant to make nice with her. Besides, he could always head back to buy Mama a new batch of muffins. Here then, he said, handing her the box. I'm sorry for yesterday. And today. But Min Hee was already opening them, her own plate of crepes forgotten.
What are these anyway?
Calamansi muffins, he replied. It felt awkward to be standing by the road while she was still seated on a bar stool. Granted, they were only a few feet apart, but Gio decided that taking a seat next to her might make things less uncomfortable.
Calamansi?
Min Hee asked, taking one and biting into it. Her phone made a small little sound like a high-pitched hiccup, but she ignored it and kept right on eating. Citrofortunella microcarpa, he answered, glad to volunteer some information. You might call it a Philippine lime. It's small and is often used as... Min Hee placed a hand over her mouth.
Please, Mr. Museum, no lectures. Besides, this is really good.
Not too sour for you? He inquired politely.
Not at all.
She replied.
Just a bit, but I like it.
She set it down on her plate. Gio could see what she had been doodling on a napkin. He pointed to the caricature of the server. It was a good likeness. Min Hee had emphasized the server's wide eyes and comb-over. So, is that what deposed CEOs do in their free time? Min Hee's lips stretched in a small smile.
Everyone needs a hobby. Hostile takeovers can be so stressful.
And yesterday's shoot, what was the cover story for that?
I have a grandmother who thinks I'm dead, and Doc Young is sending her proof that I'm alive and well.
She replied with a perfectly straight face. You're a good liar, Gio told her. Min Hee rolled her eyes.
I don't know if you just complimented me or insulted me. Have you always been this sensitive?
Gio shook his hand vehemently. No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to insult you. Really, I did.
And have you always been this gullible?
She grinned.
A word of advice for you, Mr. Museum. You're actually not bad if you stop being boring. I think we can even be friends. Lighten up.
Gio thought about how to respond. Should he protest being called boring? Should he agree that they could be friends? Should he tell her that he wasn't really gullible, just polite? If this is your way of being friends, I'd hate to get on your wrong side, he ended up saying. Damn, that sounded better in his head, or at least better if he had said it quicker. Then he composed himself. He had to get going soon anyway. Polite and composed. Well, I hope you enjoy the rest of the island. We can't afford hoteliers like you to be disappointed around here, he added, teasing her a little. There. Min Hee made a face.
I've done everything I want to do. Now I'm just bored out of my mind.
Gio, who was about to get up, turned to face her instead. He had a feeling she meant that just as an expression, but it got him really defensive. Again. But there's so many things to do here, he told her.
I'm telling you, I've done everything.
She says.
Pub crawls, banana boats, massages, kite surfing, helmet diving, parasailing. What else is there?
Island hopping.
Done.
Sunset sailing.
Done.
Nature hikes, skimboarding.
Done and done. Believe it or not, I even went to a museum to learn about the culture.
Min Hee joked. Then she turned serious.
Look, don't get all touchy. I'll still be staying here for a while. If you can find me something I haven't done, then I promise I won't complain.
You just need to see things from a different perspective, Gio told her.
Maybe I need a local to show me around.
She said. Right, Gio agreed.
Because that really ought to give me the right perspective.
True, Gio said.
So you'll be my guide?
She asked. Of course, he replied, not thinking. Min Hee's eyes lit up.
Perfect. You've got a deal, Mr. Museum.
Thank you for listening to our excerpt from Cover Story Girl. We hope you enjoyed it, and check out the book, please. Do subscribe to our podcast to hear more romance novels written by Filipino authors. Visit romancepodcast.com to find out more about what we do, and romanceclassbooks.com to find more books you might like.